Today, I want to talk about something that's been discussed through centuries, the concept of the Atman, or soul tied to the process of birth and death. According to ancient beliefs, the Atman, the soul, enters the body at the time of conception, or in some beliefs, during later stages of fetal development. It's comforting for many to think that a mystical energy enters the body and that this soul is what makes us who we are. This idea has been passed down through generations, but here's what I think: is it possible that the true meaning has been lost over time? Perhaps what was originally meant was much deeper, something that modern science can actually explain in a more logical way. Let's explore this together. In our first point, let's shift to the scientific perspective. Scientifically, the journey begins when a sperm fertilizes an egg. This is where life starts, not with the soul entering the body, but with the combination of two cells, each carrying the potential to create life. The process that follows is mind-blowing: cell multiplication, genetic coding, and the blueprint of a new human being. Everything is in the DNA. The energy we often call soul could actually be the biological energy that powers this process from the moment of conception. So, what if the Atman we talk about is actually this biological energy passed on through our genetic material? The sperm and egg already contain everything that makes us human, including our potential for consciousness, awareness, and growth. We can't deny this theory unless we have a better one. In the second point, let's try to reframe the concept of Atman. Now, let's think about this for a second. What if the Atman isn't some mystical entity that enters the body? What if it's something more practical, something we can indirectly observe and understand, like the energy contained in our cells, passed on from generation to generation? This is much more in line with how life actually works. What if the idea of the Atman, soul, entering and leaving the body was simply a convenient explanation for those who were looking for answers but didn't have the intellectual foundation of a doctor or scientist? After all, for most people, the focus is on life as a journey, not on dissecting its beginning or ending. Philosophically and practically, this makes perfect sense. But times have changed. Today, we have access to vast knowledge and technology, allowing us to explain original theories in great detail using pictures, videos, and scientific understanding. Now, let's consider this: the concept of the soul entering the womb may have been introduced as a simplified way for people to grasp the mystery of life. But once you introduce the idea of the soul entering, there's an inevitable need for the concept of the soul exiting. In trying to make this explanation easier, it unintentionally led to the birth of the idea that the soul not only enters the body but also leaves it. And here's where things started to get muddy. If the soul exits the body after death, then it must re-enter at some point. But where does it go in the meantime? It can't just float around aimlessly. Thus, the concepts of heaven and hell were introduced, where souls are either pleased or punished during this waiting period. And to make it even more complicated, the soul's re-entry into a new body had to be determined by something. That's when the theory of karma came into play, to decide whether the soul would return as a human, animal, or something else. Let me be very clear: I am not against the theory of karma, but I am against the concept of getting punished after death, which doesn't make sense at all. Your karma will punish you while you are alive. What started as a simple explanation to help people understand life and death eventually snowballed into a maze of confusing concepts, creating fear, superstition, and a disconnect from the original knowledge. Over time, these ideas were used to control people, perpetuate superstition, and instill fear of the unknown, rather than encourage thoughtful inquiry and understanding. And so, here we are today, faced with layers of confusion and misinterpretation, all stemming from an original effort to provide a basic explanation for life and death. In the third point, we are going to discuss how Upanishads somehow align with our theory. In the Athreya Upanishad 2nd Adhyay from Shloka 1 to 4, the concept of three births is explained as part of the cycle of life and the journey of the self, Atman. The first birth occurs when the father's essence, represented by his sperm, is deposited into the mother's womb, leading to the child's physical birth. The second birth happens when the father symbolically rebirths himself through his son, continuing his essence and lineage. The third birth occurs after the individual has completed their worldly duties and accumulated merit, punya, through righteous actions, at which point the self attains a state of liberation or fulfillment. Regardless of karmas, the Atman, in this case, the body of the father, is ultimately liberated once these stages of life are complete. While karma may influence experiences like heaven or hell, these are concepts to be understood in relation to one's living experience. For instance, if a father fails to impart good values or lessons to his son, the son's negative behavior will cause distress to the father during his lifetime. This moral and emotional suffering can be seen as a form of living torment, akin to a personal hell, because the father sees his own continuation through his son's misdeeds. Conversely, if the father raises his son well, instilling good lessons and values, the son's positive actions will bring pride and joy to the father, making his life feel like heaven. The father experiences this satisfaction while living, knowing that his son is a reflection of his own Atman and the lessons passed down. This connection doesn't end with the father's death. The father's Atman lives on through the son, and the son's happiness and virtue ensure the father's Atman remains fulfilled. Thus, karma manifests in the form of the living consequences of one's actions, particularly through one's offspring, rather than influencing any form of rebirth after death. By the way, this theory is not just limited to father and son, it is just an example and applies to everyone. This entire explanation supports the idea that there is no Atman after death. The concept of heaven or hell does not apply in the afterlife. Everything happens in the present life, and the true impact of karma is felt in the here and now, through the legacy passed down to the next generation. There is no life after death. After death, the Atman, being formless, cannot be pleased in heaven nor tormented in hell, as it lacks a body to experience pleasure or pain. All are liberated and attain moksha once they die. The rest is a business model invented to fool people, scare people and make money out of their fear and nothing less. And the last and most important point is about still respecting the ancient wisdom but seeking clarity. Our ancient scriptures have captured this very well. In fact, I think the knowledge they hold is profound. But, to truly understand it, we need to stop blindly following rituals and start asking deeper questions. Perhaps they were trying to say exactly what science has been proving, but we are reluctant to somehow accept it completely. And maybe, just maybe, this knowledge was lost or misinterpreted over time, leading us to the confusion we see today. This is something even Krishna feared in the Gita, when in the 4th Adhyaya Shloka 1 and 2, he said that, "O Arjuna, I taught this eternal science of yoga to the sun god, Vivasvan, who passed it on to Manu, and Manu, in turn, instructed it to Ikshvaku." The saintly kings thus received the science of yoga in a continuous tradition. But with the long passage of time, it was lost to the world, and that's why, O Arjuna, I am sharing the knowledge with you again. Let's conclude our thoughts on the Atman as a continuous life force. So here's the conclusion: Atman is not some mystical entity that enters or leaves the body. It's the biological energy, the life force, passed from one generation to the next. The idea of rebirth is not about individual souls entering new bodies. It's about the continuation of life, just like the flame from a candle to another candle. The Atman is created from Atman, life continues from one to the next, with no need for floating souls or mystical beliefs. What do you think? Is it time to rethink the way we understand life and death and focus on the knowledge we can observe, test, and truly understand? Hope you learned something new today. Thank you for joining. If you liked this video, then please like, share and subscribe.